Okay, so now we are going to talk about theme, and it's the perfect topic to talk about as we finish reading a large story. So, the theme refers to the overall message of a story. Though it is one of the most important parts of a story, the theme is rarely stated directly in its text. Instead, it is something the reader determines by figuring out how all of the different elements of a work of fiction, the plot, the language, characters, how they relate to events in the real world. Themes can come in the form of a moral, a lesson, or a general statement about life. While short stories generally have one main theme, longer works such as novels and dramas can have many themes. So, a theme is a general life lesson or a statement about life that comes from the evidence provided by the story. So, a theme is going to be something that you could apply to, that anyone could apply to their life. It will not be specific. So we're going to read this passage called Choice Anxiety, and it shouldn't be a very long passage, and then we're going to talk about the theme of this passage, and then more importantly, we're going to be able to go back through the passage and find the evidence that supports that theme and how that theme developed throughout the passage. Choice Anxiety. Plink, plink, plink. Jason opened an eye, tensing instinctively in the darkness of the room. Glancing at the alarm clock, he saw that it was 3 o'clock in the morning. Plink, plink, plink. This time, Jason raised his head from his pillow. The sound was coming from his bedroom window, and he had a feeling he knew just what it was. Climbing out of bed, he shuffled over to the window and unlocked it before pulling it open. The cool night air blew into the room, sending a shiver through his body. "Jason!" a voice whispered loudly from below. "Molly?" Jason asked sleepily. "What are you doing?" He stared down at his best friend, Molly Lynn, who was pacing restlessly in his front yard. Frowning, he closed the window and tiptoed down the hall past his parents' bedroom. Making his way down the stairs, he asked himself why he was even surprised to find her throwing pebbles at his window in the middle of the night. Molly had a way of doing things that were completely unexpected. Making his way out the front door, he spun around and almost crashed into his very excited friend. "Mol, what are you doing?" he asked, hiding his annoyance. "It's the middle of the night." "I couldn't wait to tell you," she replied with a huge grin, still whispering. "I've made a monumental decision, and I wanted you to be the first to know." Jason held his breath, waiting to hear the latest crazy scheme that Molly had concocted. "I'm running for class president," she shouted before quickly covering her mouth as a neighbor's dog started barking. Jason stared at Molly for a moment, blinking stupidly as he tried to think of something to say. This was, in fact, huge news, and not in a good way. Jason's team captain on the football team, Ryan, was going to run for class president. Jason knew that Ryan would be counting on his support. "Well, isn't this exciting news?" Molly asked a little uncertainly. "I thought you'd be a little more responsive. Are you still sleeping?" she teased. No, that's great, Mal," Jason finally replied. "I think you'd make a great class president." The truth of the matter was that both Ryan and Molly would be great class leaders. "So I was hoping that you could come to see my announcement tomorrow," Molly continued. "Maybe you could cheer me on. You might be the only one, after all." Molly knew that Ryan was her competition, and he was very popular. Jason couldn't help but admire her bravery for taking on such a daunting task. She was definitely the underdog. It reminded him of all the other crazy things that Molly had dragged him into over the years. Things that he would have never done himself. Yet those were some of the best times he'd ever had. Chuckling, Jason shook his head as he realized that his choice was an easy one to make. "Of course I'll be there," he said. "I can't think of anywhere else I'd rather be." Okay, so if you're looking at these different questions that are asked throughout the story, where it says think about why Molly chose to tell Jason first about her decision, identify the conflict that Jason has in the story, what decision does he have to make, Think about how Jason's decision to help define the friendship. Think about how Jason's decision helps to define the friendship between him and Molly. So thinking about that, what could we say is a possible theme for this story? Okay, so a good theme that we could go with is that when your best friend is passionate about something, you want to stick by them. Okay, so let's go back and we'll find some evidence to support that you should support your best friend. So the theme of supporting your best friend, being there for your friends when they need you. Okay, so a good example of this, I think, would be right here. Mal, what are you doing? He asked, hiding his annoyance. So hiding his annoyance shows that he cares about her feelings, okay, that he doesn't want her to think that he's upset that she's there, okay. Let's see here. I'm moving on to the second page here. Jason stared at Molly for a moment, blinking stupidly as he tried to think of something to say. This was huge news. Okay, so then he starts fighting with himself. There's the conflict that it's asking about. Even though the captain of his football team is going to be wanting his support, he's wanting to support his best friend also. Okay, he says, no, that's great, Mal, Jason finally replied. I think you'd make a great class president. Okay, so he's being supportive already. And then Molly says, maybe you could come cheer me on. Okay. And then he starts kind of thinking here. Jason couldn't help but admire her for her bravery for taking on such a daunting task. She was definitely the underdog. It reminded him of all the other crazy things that Molly had dragged him into over the years. Things that he would have never done himself. Yet those were some of the best times he'd ever had. So he's reflecting positively on their relationship and their experiences. And then in the end, he says to her, of course I'll be there. I can't think of anywhere else I'd rather be. So this is a short passage, so we can't find a ton of evidence to support. For your project, you're going to be getting a theme from Fish in a Tree, and you're going to have to find a lot of evidence throughout the story of how your theme is supported, how it developed throughout the story. So quickly recap, theme refers to the overall message in the story. It's probably, in my opinion, the most important thing about a story. It's the purpose of a story. Why read it if you can't learn a lesson? But especially at this level, it's not going to be outright stated. You're going to have to take the information that's given to you, the evidence that happens in the passage, in the story, and come up with a theme on your own.